It is a turbulent period for those on death row. Some inmates never stop fighting against their approaching death, searching for any conceivable opening to block the order, or at least delay it, until they determine their next course of action. They can rely on the efforts of their family or activists to prevent it from happening, but this should not be their sole source of optimism. Depending on the reputation of the culprit, death row convicts are occasionally interviewed by local or even nationwide news agencies. The truth is that this terrible period stretches far beyond the prison walls where the death row convict resides. Their family, friends, the families of the victims, and even state authorities are experiencing some type of grief. At 9 p.m., once the detainees have been searched and registered, they are now on death watch. They are placed in a cell near the execution room. They remain alone in their cell, but are continually monitored. They are not treated as they would have been in a conventional prison. The cells are typically far nicer than the quarters inmates are accustomed to, whether because they are cleaner, have more private amenities, or a combination of these factors. There is a shower, a basin, a toilet, and a desk with access to a phone immediately outside the door. It's a terrible period for a prisoner to endure, yet most of the time, they can't sleep due to the multitude of ideas racing through their heads, so they find any method possible to keep themselves occupied. A prisoner awaiting execution is permitted to call or visit his family and friends, as well as get a visit from a priest at 10:30 a.m. The inmate is provided with lunch. It's nothing special, but they may eat alone for a brief period of time if they desire to even touch the food. Following this, the prisoner must prepare for their execution at 3 p.m. Since the electric chair has been nearly phased out in favor of a fatal injection, it has become necessary to shave the prisoner. The prisoner will be required to dress in the clothing supplied by the state. It will still be a jail uniform, but it will be considerably nicer than what they are accustomed to. They permit the inmate to take a shower and even encourage it. At 4:30 p.m., it's time to wrap up the day and eat the Last Supper, which would have been planned in preparation since the day's start, and which the chefs have been cooking for you. The final dinner might consist of nearly whatever the prisoner wishes. There have been some extraordinary examples of a prisoner's last meal, ranging from extravagant to extremely basic. It depends on the prisoner and the restrictions of the state, province, or nation. Some establishments take the standards for farewell meals significantly more seriously than others. At 5 p.m., they will begin preparing him, perhaps 90 minutes before if tubes are attached in preparation for a deadly injection. Witnesses will then be escorted into the execution chamber to observe the execution. If there is no delay, he will pass away at 8 p.m. The arrival of witnesses for the execution. These may include relatives, friends, journalists, and even victims of the murderer's atrocities. They are observing from a separate room through the one-way glass. The prisoner is permitted to say his last remarks in front of whoever is listening. It's unusual for a prisoner on death row to cause any problem when they're about to be executed, but in the past week, they've gone through a succession of emotions that have brought them to terms with their fate and the impossibility of changing it. Some continue to oppose, but this is uncommon. The execution is a relatively orderly process that is unremarkable outside of the actual execution. The most problematic aspect of the execution itself is a faulty chair or difficulty providing the lethal dose in such a stressful circumstance. After the coroner has pronounced the defendant dead and the body has been released to the family for a suitable burial, you are not witnessing an execution, but you are witnessing a murder.